Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 422, Masters Recap and a Titanic Rabbit Hole. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, going pretty well. Had a busy weekend of sport, busy Sunday with all the various, my sporting Sunday started at 7 a.m. and finished at about 1 a.m. So I'm fully recovered now, but yeah, good weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you've seen the Dan Campbell quote that came out a few days ago, but you could have been the player in question. Apparently, when he was on the Dolphins, there was a player that came in every day reeking of alcohol, but yet he performed to the highest level and never missed a rep, never dogged it in practice, and was one of their best players.
So are you saying I could have been him because of the still managing to perform?
Yes.
Or just the smelling of alcohol? Okay, I'll take that as
both,
a compliment.
But no, it's both together, though.
I mean, admittedly, I had zero alcohol yesterday, so I wasn't out over the weekend. So I was consuming a lot of sport, but not consuming it in a bar, and not consuming any alcohol at the same time.
But I mean, that got me to questioning. So there was actually kind of a backlash about this and how this is indicative of the terrible, toxic culture of the NFL. And to me, I kind of thought maybe that was a little overblown, like a little bit of the media taking it too far. Because, I mean, obviously, one, yes, you don't want someone to be coming in reeking of alcohol. But his quote was actually that even though maybe outside of the job, he wasn't taking care of himself, when he got there and got, to the facility, he was a leader on the field, never missed a rep, never missed anything, didn't mess up. It didn't affect his performance, he doesn't think. So is it a big deal?
Well, yeah, because you would hope that in any job and in any company or organization that people would care for their employees and their colleagues for more than just the office hours. So just saying, if the two of us, if you were just a complete disaster, just an alcoholic outside of our recording sessions, and it's like, well, as long as Frank turns up and he's not slurring during these 90 minutes, I don't care what he's doing the rest of the time. And so I think from that aspect, I mean, you also have to assume there might be a degree of hyperbole in him saying, oh, he turned up every day stinking of alcohol. But I mean, I don't know. Well, I probably had one. I'm
going to read you the quote. I'm going to stop you there and read you the quote. I remember I had a guy in Miami. God, he loved ball. He was a dynamic football player, but he came in every day just reeking of alcohol. He was probably on a bender for who knows how long, but God, he loved football. He showed up. He didn't have any missed assignments. He hustled nonstop. And it's like, you know what? You'll find a way to make that guy work. Not saying we want those guys, but he loved ball and he had success. And he's still playing today, by the way.
Well, I mean, I guess that means he was young at the time. So that is also different. I mean, I probably had one job in my life where there may have been some colleagues who looked back and described my... I mean, I don't think I was stinking.
But being a bartender, that's like part of the job.
No. This is when I first worked at UNESCO. I'm not talking about being a bartender. I would say I almost never turned up to a bar stinking of booze, because by the time your shift started, you know,
naturally seeped in.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a little bit different. But I mean, there were plenty of times, that was kind of me first starting to work, but being a young person, where I was out till 4 or 5 in the morning and then turning up for work at 8 o'clock, and was capable of doing it and was able to perform. But I'm sure with hindsight, I always thought I turned up looking fresh and, presenting myself in the best possible manner. Probably I had some colleagues who were aware of it. And again, I wasn't an alcoholic. It was not every day, but there were definitely days where I was out partying till 5 and then, like a Thursday night and turning up for work on a Friday. But thinking,
did you show up, not have any missed assignments and hustle nonstop?
I mean, I was good at my job, so I'll say that. I didn't miss
So
work.
good you're not there anymore.
I was there for 3 years.
Whoa, a whole 3 years?
Oh, I'm sorry, Frank. Are you at the same place you started your first job at?
Well, technically, it's my first job, so yes.
Okay. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think that would be the concern is just someone, if you felt like the person was doing things outside of their. I mean, there's two things. You can't possibly imagine that even if he is still delivering, that he is kind of having the best possible output
Yeah.
whilst turning up stinking at booze.
If
So even if you go, oh my God, he's still great, you should be thinking to yourself, how good
imagine.
would he be? Yeah. So I think there's a failure in that respect from a coaching perspective, but then also just from a human standpoint, you would hope that someone, and maybe he did, and he's not wanting to go into all of those details, but you would hope someone sat down and said, hey, just so you know, we kind of know, do you have any issues? Is there a way we can help you?
Yeah, I think that's actually the part that is concerning to me, not the fact that there are players coming in off benders, because also, I mean, you're in an occupation where that is just so in your face. You know, as an athlete, I'm sure they're asked to go to parties every day of the week. You know, like, hey, can you come attend this? Can you go here? Can you go there? But I think the bigger concern is the fact that Dan Campbell is saying this, but didn't follow up and say, we tried to see if he needed help. You know, like we tried to point him in the right direction and tell him that if he's this good and we can smell something concerning, imagine how good you could be if you cleaned up that part of your life and came in fresh and refreshed. Sorry, fresh and rested, and was actually ready to go.
Yeah, and again, I think that the challenge there is at what moment in time are you discussing something too publicly? I mean, if I'm him, I don't think you even address this publicly unless you can talk about a complete story where it is the person getting to a point where they are certainly past these problems, to hint at the fact that, hey, he's still in the league and imply that maybe he's still up to the same thing. I think that's not great, but I don't know. It would be, I'd feel uncomfortable if he was also just telling someone else's story and saying, and then look how great I was. I then helped this person. You know, that would seem unnecessary, but I can understand why someone would look at that and say it sends the wrong messages regarding the culture within NFL teams.
I think the key word there is NFL teams, because the NFL has quite the history of off the field instances, and this, I'm sure, is a contributing factor to many of those instances, is alcohol related and drug related. So in that regard too, I think it's a bad. I think that's the part that's a bad look on the NFL it's not like the NFL is a squeaky clean league and oh, you had guys coming in off benders, but you know, off the field, you know, the NFL is sparkling reputation.
No, again, though, even if you're not even, I mean, I think that's a fair point, but even if you're not linking it to some of the, kind of worst behavior that we've seen from NFL players, and also in a sense, sort of implying that, this is at least an acceptance or turning away and ignoring indications of a risk of that type of behavior. I think I think just on a human level, it's not good. I wouldn't be proud of myself if I had an employee and they were coming in on a daily basis and there were clear indications that maybe they were struggling outside of the office. And I just said, well, hey, nailed all of his KPIs this month though, so who cares? you know, I gotta keep pushing that train till it stops rolling and then, hop off when it's done.
Yeah, I mean that's, you know, part of the reason why Sam left our podcast, right? I mean, we kind of forced him to get help and, you know, clean himself up before he came back, and it looks like he's never coming back. So
I can't solve those problems. They've yet to find a good cure for that.
well, would you hold it against Scottie Scheffler if he showed up to his practice round Tuesday a little hungover now that he's a master champion?
No, no. I think if you're just out celebrating, then I think you can afford to go on a couple of weeks of bender without anyone really judging you. I think that's fine. But yeah, no, the Masters, I have to admit, in recent seasons, aside from, say, Tiger Woods winning and that storyline, but fundamentally, a lot of these Masters have been a little bit of an anticlimax, not because of who has won them, but just because I think most people would associate Augusta with being this really challenging course where people can slip up down the stretch. And obviously, yesterday, you kind of had that happen to Cameron Smith. But for the most part, we've seen leaders be able to get a lead and hold on to a lead. And you are seeing these people establish a lead in the second or third round and then just never really be caught. And that's just disappointing from a spectator's perspective. But it was an enjoyable tournament, and had lots of little talking points. I don't know where to start. Whether it feels sad because I think in some respects Scheffler is maybe the third most interesting talking point out of everything that came out of that weekend. I mean, I think Tiger Woods is still the dominant story, even if
Followed by Rory.
yeah, followed by Rory doing what Rory does, which is being way off the pace and producing a round that makes it look as if he was in with a chance of winning, even if realistically in the moment he never really had one. But no, I mean, Scottie Scheffler's transformation as a golfer is kind of astounding. To go from someone who had not won on the PGA Tour to have now having won 4 of his last 6 tournaments, being world number 1, winning his first major, kind of turning into a dominant golfer a little bit out of nowhere, basically post Ryder Cup. But
Yeah. So, I mean, just to detail that a little bit, he in 57 days, he went from winning his first PGA Tour event to becoming the Masters champion. And within that, like you said, he's won 4 tournaments. So he started with the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, where he won 1.5 million. Then the Arnold Palmer Invitational, 2.2 million. Then the WGC Match Play for 2.2 million, and now the Masters for 2.7. So quite a 2-month payday of about almost a little over $8 million.
yeah, no, I mean, I don't think the money is the big aspect because I don't think he was exactly struggling prior to that.
But
I
that's
think we
pretty
can
intense to think of. In 2 months, you go from never winning an event to being $8.5 million
no,
richer in 2 months.
sure, but it's not like you only get paid in on the PGA when you win. So it's not like he was an amateur turned pro and then all of a sudden made 8 million. He will have, I'm sure. I guess we could look up his career earnings. I'm sure it was a pretty nice amount even before this run. Yes, this has probably accelerated his earnings significantly, but I doubt he was struggling financially before 2022 rolled around.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I agree with you. I think the issue with the Masters, and it's just hasn't been exciting. And it led me to think, and this is kind of where I was going to ask you one of the questions is, golf is a sport where it's so slow that I think casual viewers will only watch it if there is, some level of close competition where someone's down 1 or 2 trying to catch someone or things like that. But then when I think about it, the majority of people who are watching the Masters are going to watch the Masters no matter what. So do you think
I don't
that
know if that's true.
that's what I was going to ask is, do you think that they lost a lot of viewership because Scheffler was up, 4 strokes the majority of Sunday?
I don't know if it's such a huge, I don't think they're going to say they got some massive knock in terms of the viewers, but I am sure that they know deep down, based on the fact that it was Cam Smith and Scottie Scheffler, that's not attracting the same number of eyeballs as
I think that's
maybe
the bigger issue.
And that's they are the 2 informed golfers in the world. So in some respects, it's a little bit insulting to the 2 of them because coming into the tournament, they were the informed golfers. They probably, over the course of the 4 rounds, Cam Smith's sort of back 9 aside, played the course the best. But it's just that you're missing the star power. And you almost felt it a little bit in terms of how Rory was able to steal, even over the course of that final round, so much attention.
Yeah.
When he was 6-7 shots off the lead.
Oh, let's be honest. The best shot of the whole tournament was Rory holing out in 18, and I couldn't even tell you what Scheffler's putt on 18 looked like to win, but I can tell you what Rory's chip.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, he missed. He missed 2 short putts and then eventually made it. But okay, best shot on the of the tournament is a different argument because that's just a
But
highlight.
most iconic shot. 10 years from now, I think you're going to remember Rory's shot, and you're not going to really remember anything Scottie Scheffler did.
I don't think I'll remember Rory's shot 10 years from now.
I will, because he went up and then went woo all the way back down.
I don't think people. I think it's like anything in sport. People don't remember highlights that are not associated with winners. I saw a lot of people comparing which one was better: Tiger Woods' chip in versus Rory's chip. You know, the iconic Tiger chip in where the ball slowly tracks towards the hole. I mean, it's obviously the Tiger chip in because that was him going. Yeah, he won the tournament that year. So whether or not it was easier or, you know, more impressive from a technical standpoint, who really cares? But the highlight is always going to be more iconic when it's associated with a winner, or the reverse when it's associated with a loser. So, like, you know, Spieth having his disastrous 12th hole a couple of years ago, iconic highlight because he went from being comfortably in the lead to blowing it, will be remembered more than Cam Smith finding the water, because he just went from maybe having a chance to being totally out of contention.
Or what's his face? Van de Velde, right?
Yes. No, I mean, yeah, that's probably the most iconic losing memory.
Which is crazy. That's over 20 years ago. Just FYI.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Can we just? That's one of the things I don't need anymore. I don't need constantly, when people are covering golf or any sport for that matter, when you have an older person participating, I do not need. Do you know this guy wasn't even born when Tiger Woods won the Masters for the first time? I don't need it. I don't need. Do you know this guy wasn't even born when Tom Brady made his NFL debut? Don't need it. I can process time. I do understand this guy's 22 years old. Tiger Woods won the Masters 25 years ago for the first time. Worked it out. Not an idiot.
Speaking of things that you hate, Eddie, I heard there was an Uber Eats commercial that got played quite often on the European broadcasts of the Masters.
No, it's specifically British, but
okay.
I mean, it's an Uber Eats commercial that's played pretty relentlessly in general. But yeah, it's supposed to be this Uber Eats driver giving. It's kind of an interesting concept. He turns up at a kind of disappointed household with their food delivery, and then proceeds to give a motivational speech just in the form of reading out the items that he is delivering. It's played over the sound you hear in the background of Al Pacino's speech in Any Given Sunday.
Oh my God, I love this commercial already. What are you complaining about? This commercial sounds amazing.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Part of why I hate it is
because I don't for that inch.
No, but he's not doing that.
Oh, he's not doing the Al Pacino voice?
No, he's just going spicy chicken wrap, quarter pounder with cheese. You know, like that's all.
If he did that in an Al Pacino accent, that would be pretty amazing of a commercial.
I would have been on board with if it had been kind of someone doing an Al Pacino impression, maybe even dressed a little bit like Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday, maybe with a rolled up menu, you know, because he has the rolled up playbook.
Yeah.
Like if he had the rolled up menu and he was doing all that thing, and if it was more on point, I think most people probably watch it and have no idea that that's where the music is from. So the reference isn't clear enough to even have most people figure out what it is. But no, I mean, the thing that I got to really thinking about, and this is actually going to help us, this is a kind of transition, but without fully transitioning. You know, I thought it was kind of sad. You know, I made the prediction on the last podcast that Tiger Woods wouldn't make the cut. I'm happy he made the cut, although I don't know if he's necessarily all that happy he made the cut, because, I mean, he looked just almost crippled by the end of the 4 days. And I think he might have been happier had he ended up sort of 5 over through the first 2 rounds and just missed the cut and kind of taken some more positives out of that versus a very disastrous 3rd and 4th round.
Like limping the 4th round. Like,
yeah,
it was like a struggle for him to walk the course. You felt bad. Well, at a point, you're just like, come on, dude, just like you're clear. It's clearly not that you're just not playing well. You are injured, and that's causing you to perform very badly and perform like causing you to not even be able to do normal functions like walk from the tee to the green. At that point, I think you just got to call it.
Um, I don't see. I disagree there. If you're turning up, you're turning up. You know, I think if you've made the commitment to be there, I would have been disappointed if he had been withdrawing from the tournament. I would have said flat out, now you retire. If you can't complete the tournament, just retire. I mean, we are talking
Oh,
about a guy who
he
won.
kind of couldn't complete.
Well, he did though. He
He
did.
shot the two worst rounds he's ever shot in Masters history back to back.
Yeah, but, well, I think see that people are going a little bit. He's also old and hadn't played golf for 14 months, so it's not necessarily
His
old.
first round was okay. Like what I'm saying is, I don't think it
But
was.
the conditions got tougher too.
Not on the third and fourth day. They weren't that bad that he shoots the two worst rounds. I mean, it was clear he was deteriorating. His body couldn't hold up.
No, sure, but I think people are using. This is my concern. I think people are using his injuries as a complete excuse for his bad performance. Look, what were we expecting? Even if he'd come into this fully healthy, the guy hasn't played a golf tournament in 14, 15, 16 months, whatever it is. He's older, obviously, than he's ever been coming into a tournament. That goes without saying. Why is it surprising that he's had his worst round in Masters history? Like it would have been more amazing to me if you'd gone, oh, do you know what? Actually, his worst Masters was 10 years ago. That would be then you'd question what were you doing 10 years ago, Tiger? Because 10 years ago you didn't just get into a major car accident and then not play golf for a long time. So what was your excuse then? So
Alcohol and drugs.
and hookers.
I mean,
was that who they were talking about? Was he showing up to Miami football practice? Just loved bowl. But I what it got me thinking was, in some ways, it's increasing his legacy. This him struggling. It's interesting because even though it's kind of humanizing him overall. Both, I think, all of the struggles he's had over the last 15, 16 years have made him less sort of godlike. And I use that loosely, but when you can see these athletes who achieve this status where they seem as if they're not like us. But also watching him struggle on the golf course in some ways and watching him battle through it all makes him seem, in some ways, I think it adds to his greatness. But it's interesting to see the contrast. With some athletes that works, and with some athletes it doesn't. Like with some people, when they start to struggle towards the back end of their career, it significantly hurts their legacy. Like I think Peyton Manning, even though he won a Super Bowl in his final season, some people hold it against him that he was so bad for that final season. The fact that his arm was gone and that he only won a Super Bowl because of how good the defense was. I think some people kind of almost use it as a way of knocking his overall career performance, which is strange because the reverse in this kind of Tiger Woods mentality is what a trooper Peyton Manning was. His arm was basically gone and he was still out there getting the job done, even if it wasn't necessarily as pretty as it had been 10 years before. And I think when you have we're in an era where we have a number of players playing on way past their prime. And it's interesting to see how each one of them is then being analyzed. I mean, we've not reached it. Tom Brady kind of is still almost in his prime, but we're seeing it with LeBron James, right? Who statistically is almost as good as ever, defensive stats aside. But again, it feels like his legacy is being hurt by his team's poor performance, even though he individually is still quite good. And he's doing it at an age no one's ever really done this before at. But somehow, the fact that he's playing and not up to the level he's previously shown to be capable of playing at is hurting his overall legacy. I find it very strange how it gets applied to some and not to others.
well, I think that's just people just being very short-sighted and not seeing that they're aging, right? I mean, it's maybe people like refusing to understand that when you age physically, you're just not going to be what you were when you were 25. So that, I think that's just kind of people being dumb personally, because I mean, I see Tiger. I don't. Isn't that what makes Tiger Woods winning 2019 just so amazing? Is that he's at an age where you have people that are younger hitting it further, just physically more gifted than he is right now, but he's still able to overcome that and put it together to win a Masters.
Yeah. I mean, he's not that old by golfing standards, right? I also do think we get lost in, especially he wasn't when he won last time.
But I think
But
he's not old by golfing standards, but I think this is a whole nother argument we can get into, but I think his body is old in terms of being a golfer, in the sense that he's been golfing since he could walk. He's been through numerous injuries. I don't know many players who have had multiple back surgeries and this surgery and that surgery and are still coming back and competing as well as he did and winning a Masters.
no, I mean, that's a pretty unique set of circumstances. But I mean, part of that also is in, and not for me to tell Tiger Woods how to swing a golf club. Part of it is he could probably adapt his swing a little bit more to put a little bit less strain on his body. The amount of torque that he kind of puts his body through, he could probably take 10 yards off his tee shots. Coming into this tournament, everyone's like, oh, it's crazy. In his practice round, he was hitting it just as far as Justin Thomas. Maybe you don't need to hit it just as far as Justin Thomas. Maybe ease up slightly, and then on Sunday you could walk.
I'll say, and then Justin Thomas wasn't crawling to the 18th hole.
and again, like, who am I to tell Tiger Woods how to play golf?
I mean, you're Edward Hewitt. I mean, who else is there if it wasn't you?
I'm surprised my phone hasn't got a ring from him yet for advice on how to play St. Andrews in a couple months. And I guess, that was the big news. He's confirmed that he will be heading to St. Andrews to play in the Open, which is good for golf. I'm sure everyone involved in the Open and at St. Andrews is absolutely delighted, because it just, not that, again, a tournament of that stature does not necessarily need the Tiger Woods bump, but it definitely increases interest and will just drive media attention in the weeks leading up and during the tournament itself. And I mean, a bit like tennis, I think the situation with Tiger Woods, we see it in tennis where no one has really stepped up to fill the shoes of that great generation of tennis players who are now coming towards the tail end of their careers in Federer and Nadal and Djokovic. You do feel that a bit too with the Tiger Woods issue, and we've had these false dawns with numerous players, with Rory, with Spieth, with Dustin Johnson to a degree, where we've had these young players burst on the scene, and it's like, here we go. Here is the guy who's going to be sort of leading golf for the next 10, 15 years. And no one's managed to do that. I think that's the other. There seems to be a void when he's not involved, which is the other concern for the sport itself.
Yeah. Well, let's piggyback off of that. Do you think it could be Scottie Scheffler?
I mean, no. And that's not a knock on Scottie Scheffler, but already part of me feels like the fact that he's having this transformation at 25, even though historically in golf that actually would make a lot of sense, but just because over the last sort of 20 years, if you're not winning multiple tournaments, he's the third youngest player to win the Masters, right? So it's him. He's got Tiger Woods before him, Jordan Spieth before him, and him. So again, by Masters champion standards, he's extremely young. But I don't know. There's just he definitely doesn't have the aura necessary, and part of that is you win and you build it, but you need charisma and personality, I think, to be able to become that person. And he doesn't seem to have that. And that's not a knock on him, because I think not many people in the world have that ability to have it. But, even Rory has it more than he does. And I don't know. He just seems like, I've watched him win the Masters. He was very impressive in his performances. And I came away with zero impression about what his actual personality is, apart from regularly people saying how he's so calm and relaxed. And whether he hits the shot into the water or he, chips it in. He looks exactly the same. That's cool, but maybe sometimes you kind of need the reaction to generate the interest from the spectator standpoint. I mean, Rory went. That was the most animated I think I've ever seen Rory McIlroy when he had that chip in.
I mean, he slammed his club into the sand. That was pretty aggressive.
Whereas you had the Scottie Scheffler chip in, which is obviously much more significant in some respects on what was that, the third hole? And that was the kind of swing that effectively won in the Masters. I mean, I think at that moment in time, I mean, we were speaking throughout the tournament. So he started the day 1-2 favorite to win the Masters, and not to use betting odds as any real indication of your, the probability of you winning, but he was 1-2. Cameron Smith was like 5-2, and then no one else was really involved from a betting perspective. And by the time when they were sitting next to each other, about to chip onto the third green, Cameron Smith had gone slight favorite in the betting market. And I said it to you yesterday. I feel like if he hadn't chipped in, he loses the Masters. Like, it really felt like it was slipping away from him. And I think that was a huge knock for Cameron Smith, because he kind of felt like he'd done, even though it was only 2 holes in, he'd done so much to claw back that margin. And then it was like, crap, now I've got to do it all again.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to kind of knock you a little bit. And then also for him, it kind of had to be a reassuring element of, phew, I've got away with this. I've played 3 mediocre golf holes and I haven't lost my lead. And it's strange because he didn't really put a foot wrong all that much over the course of that final round from a score perspective. And barring the mishap on the final green, he would have had an under par round. So you would have said, I mean, he ended up 1 under par, I guess, but he could have been 3 under par for the round, which is a nice final round at Augusta. But he never felt that convincing, which is the other thing about it. Like, it always felt as if the door was slightly open. If anyone else, I mean, the only person who managed to do it was Rory, but if Cam Smith had managed to keep up the pressure, it always felt like there was a mistake just around the corner for Scheffler.
Well, that kind of brings up one of the things that was mentioned, at least in the U.S. broadcast, is when Rory hit his final shot to go 8 under. While they were teeing off, they posted the updated scores, and the U.S. commentators made a note to say the scores have been posted, and Scheffler has not looked at the scores and has already told whoever previously that he's playing with blinders on, and he's not worried, or not that he's not worried, he's not looking or changing his play based off of anyone else's score. And my question to you is, do you think that's the right way to play?
I feel like a lot of golfers say that.
I understand. It's one of those things. It's a kind of a cliche thing to say, but let's say he says that, and that's how he plays. He goes out in the 4th round and he says, I'm not looking at the scoreboard. I'm going to play my round, and I'm not going to let the scoreboard dictate any of the shots I make. Do you think that's the right move or not?
Fundamentally, no, because I think particularly once you have a pretty big lead, and look, it's one of those where it's so much you judge it based on outcome. So if you play more conservatively and you blow it, people would say, well, you should have kept playing the same way that got you the lead. And it's like any sport, when you make those adjustments, you kind of set yourself up for criticism, or when you don't make those adjustments. He took that big risk. What was it, on the 15th or the 16th, the par 5, where he went for the green, where there's the creek just before and he kind of mishit the shot, and he still got away with it. He didn't go into the creek. And certainly on the British broadcast, the commentators were stunned that he decided to go for it. And, you kind of think in that moment, okay, that is what you would have done had you been a shot behind and you're trying to win the Masters. But you do run the risk of just coming across as an idiot for doing something, for not just laying up. So,
I mean, I think in his instance, I think that's completely the wrong way to play. And I understand the idea is you're going to play your own game and you're not going to let other things influence you. But at the same time, if you're the last player, you have a competitive advantage where you know exactly what you need to do to win. And that's different. If I'm Rory and I'm playing, then I'm saying, yes, I'm not really looking at the score. I know I need to go out and I need to put up a big score and I need to make a lot of noise and have people maybe get a little nervous. Whereas with Scheffler, exactly what you're saying. He's going into these holes. I mean, and the only one that had a chance was Rory, and he finished when Scheffler was on 14 or 13 even. So he knows going into that par five, like, do I need to really do this or not? Like, let me dial it back. I think it's dumb to not take an advantage when it's given to you like that.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's like saying if you're playing match play golf and as if you were not responding to what your opponent was doing. And so you watch your opponent, you're all square on the 18th and you watch your opponent kind of hit their tee shot out of bounds and you go, you know what, I'm going to try and smash my driver as well. Because that's what I would have done if he had kind of nailed this down the middle of the fairway. So it's what I'm going to do too. And I get it to a degree. You play the way that got you there. But yeah, I think, and also I'm sure he kind of knows. Like he obviously knows he came in with this big lead, and he knows that Cam Smith was probably his only realistic competition, unless he had been significantly over par. So he probably knows when he's sitting at 10 under, look, I got to be at least, Cam Smith is now 3 under or whatever he was at that point. He has to know I'm at least 3 shots clear here, right? So even if you're not looking at the scoreboard, you have to know in your head. I think the interesting thing is your caddy obviously knows, and obviously your caddy is giving you advice that puts your caddy in a kind of awkward position because
No, you
then,
need to go for the green here. Do I?
Yeah,
I think you do.
is he
Oh, I
supposed to
think
give
that's
you?
stupid. No, I think you should go for the green.
Yeah, is he supposed to give you the advice as if there was no scoreboard and for you to play the best possible shot, which I guess is, or is he supposed to give you the kind of course management advice that you would maybe expect a caddy to do? It puts him in a little bit of a tricky spot, but and obviously, look, he knew when he was putting on the 18th because he missed the 2 easy putts and he laughed when he missed the second one. So he obviously knew at that point. He wasn't standing over that putt thinking, make this one to win the Masters. I referenced that thing that BBC had done last week where they were interviewing Masters champions and speaking about like the shot that won them the Masters. And I think it was Adam Scott. He said when he was going on the 18th that there was a big roar. And so he knew he was leading after he'd made it on the 17th. I think it was Adam Scott. And so he said he then played the 18th assuming he knew he was leading, but assuming he was only 1 shot ahead is the way he then played the 18th, and he hadn't been looking at the scoreboard. And then when he got to the green, he said to his caddy, I feel like I can 2-putt this and I'm okay. And his caddy said, well, that's all right then, because you can 4-putt this and still win. And he was like, oh, really? Okay, I've got it then. And I'm pretty sure that was either Adam Scott or Trevor Immelman. I can't remember, but I don't know what I would do in that situation. I think I would want to know the scoreboard at all times, but I also just think it would be impossible for me not to kind of be looking at it. So I might as well just embrace it and know the score.
But yeah, so a good win for Scottie Scheffler, who to me looks like a less emotional Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. And Coach Taylor was notoriously not very emotional to begin with, and I feel like he's less, but he kind of looks like him a little.
Yeah, I think that's a slight insult to Coach Taylor.
Yeah, he's like the Walmart version of Kyle Chandler.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get cast to play a younger Kyle Chandler or anything. Let me put it that way. But no, I mean,
but if you told me he's got some Kyle Chandler in his blood, I could believe it.
And just by the way, I did look up his career earnings. So prior to this, he's earned $9 million in 2022 so far. Prior to that, he had earned $8 million. So yes, obviously doubling your career earnings, kind of the first 3 years of his career, earning that in the first 6 months of the next year.
Oh, I guess yeah.
That's great. That being said, he'd already earned $8 million over the course of the first 3 years of his career. So he's doing all right. This is probably buying him a slightly bigger house or building an extension on his house, but he already had a really nice house.
I actually read an article today that was saying like, oh, but hold on, because he has to pay taxes, he's actually going to lose like 45% of that. So he's really not making nearly as much as you think. And it's like, I don't know if you could say that when you still take home $1.2 million in cash after taxes, buddy.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. You know, it's yes, it's not quite as nice as the original number looks on paper, but it's still pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe transitioning to the other story we sort of alluded to, which is LeBron James and the Lakers. Obviously, in one of the most surprising things I think I may have ever seen in some respects in sport, with the Lakers missing the playoffs altogether, which I genuinely think it's one of the biggest regular season failures I can in our lifetime. It's hard for me to imagine. I can't even think of anything that comes close.
Yeah, and not making the playoffs doesn't make it sound as bad as it is. When you put the record out there, I think that to me is the 33-49 they were this season. They weren't even close to a 500 record. That is just because in today's day and age, right, a lot of sports now have such large playoff entries,
yeah, I mean
which the NBA does as well. So when you say they don't make the playoffs, sometimes you can think like, oh, maybe they had like a 500 record or slightly over 500, but they weren't even close.
No, right. I mean, if you think back on the NBA of the kind of 90s or early 2000s, then it seems more believable. But yeah, with this expanded playoffs, with the play-in games that you have, where more teams make the playoffs than miss the playoffs,
yeah,
it's kind of an achievement to not make it, and to have a team, with two genuine all-stars. Now, admittedly, they've been hurt by injuries. I mean, I don't think Russell Westbrook is a genuine all-star anymore. He's a huge name, and they're paying him an ungodly amount of money. I mean,
then specify current. I mean, because he was like a 12-time all-star.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you expect from Anthony Davis and LeBron James, those two alone, even with Anthony Davis having missed the majority of the season, you kind of think that between the two of them, they should be able to drag you to the playoffs. And then you throw in, I mean, I think Russell Westbrook has hurt them more than he's helped them. So I think he's a major contributing factor to why they aren't in the playoffs.
Which I love, but
yeah, because he has, he's got such a huge ego. But
yeah. So yeah, just to throw that out, that was one of the main critiques of the Lakers this season, was that they were never healthy together. So the stat is they're the only 5-man lineup not to play 100 minutes together, and they were only able to have LeBron James, Davis, and Westbrook on the floor for 21 games. Interestingly, in those games, they only went 11-10. So it's not as if when they were on there that they were dominant. They were a 500 team when all three played together. So maybe that speaks to the fact that it wasn't so much that they all weren't playing together, that maybe sometimes when you bring together egos and superstars, it's not always going to work out. Although in the NBA, you think if there is a sport where single stardom could work for a team, you'd think it'd be the NBA more than other sports.
Yeah, for sure. And look, there's obviously some nuance to that, because I don't think Anthony Davis was fundamentally ever really healthy. So yes, even when they're all playing together, it's not like they're getting, 100% of Anthony Davis. And over the course of this season, they used 39 different lineups, which I actually think 40 with their final game of the season, which is incredible. And that's going to disrupt your team chemistry and the flow of your play, even when you then all come back, because you just don't really know how to play together. So it's somewhat understandable from that perspective, but just given the players they have available, it's just mind-blowing. I mean, I just feel like, and again, it touches on that interesting subject. There's so many people now who you hear discussing it in the media who, well, this settles the Jordan LeBron James debate, because there's so many people who would say, well, Michael Jordan would have never missed the playoffs. Like, he would have never allowed a team of some relevance to just not make the playoffs. And part of me believes that's true, but at the same time, And it's difficult to compare in terms of longevity just because of the advancements in terms of nutrition and how they take care of their bodies and the easier playing schedule. But we are talking about a LeBron James who averaged 30 points at 37 years old, and in the process became the oldest player in NBA history to average 30 points per game, having already been the youngest player in NBA history to average 30 points per game when he was 21. So, he's kind of bookending his career with these fabulous individual performances, but it does feel like the team's failures do impact his legacy.
But didn't Jordan not make the playoffs with the Wizards his last 2 years?
I I don't think he did, but I guess the difference would be those he joined the Washington Wizards, so there weren't playoff expectations. LeBron James is on the Lakers with Anthony Davis, with Russell Westbrook. He's kind of the G, and I guess also some of the criticism that can be leveled at LeBron James is he's the kind of de facto GM of this Lakers team, and he has made them make several of these trades. He was the one who really wanted Russell Westbrook, supposedly, and that's why they ended up with Russell Westbrook over some other players who probably would have contributed more to their season. So he does get an additional bit of blame there for having had the control to sort of build his team and not managing to build a competent one. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I know how I feel about the Lakers' failure. It is stunning. I don't know how I feel about how this impacts my overall impression of LeBron James.
Yeah, I don't actually know either. It's tough. Maybe you have to wait and put this in perspective. Maybe the next few years he is on a team that's making playoffs and is back in contention, but we'll have to see.
Maybe. I mean, it's hard because they have so few moves available to them because you have Russell Westbrook on this huge contract. I mean, he's getting $45 million a year or whatever it is. And it's hard to imagine anyone taking that contract on. So they're kind of stuck with Russell Westbrook. So then the only move available to them is to shift Anthony Davis. But it's hard to see how you strengthen your team by losing a player who at this point should probably be their best player and who they definitely are going to get full value for given his recent injury struggles. So it's hard to kind of see the way out for the Lakers, but you never know. And obviously now they need to hire a new head coach after uh, in the strangest to add to one of the strangest seasons I've ever witnessed. Definitely the strangest firing of a head coach or a manager I've ever seen, which is you had a Woj bomb, so Adrian Wojnarowski, break the news yesterday after their final game of the season when they came back to beat the Nuggets and probably one of their more impressive performances of the season. Came out and said that Frank Vogel was being fired and that the Lakers were going to enter into an extensive and extended period of looking for a new head coach, and that someone on the team would inform Frank Vogel tomorrow that he had been fired. I find that I don't understand it. I don't understand how someone is leaking that information. I don't know how anyone internally thinks it's appropriate to leak the information without before Frank Vogel has found it out. I don't even know how I feel about the reporting in some respects. Just the
The
whole
argument with the reporting, though, if you were to ask Wojciechowski, he would say like, one, that's my job, and if I don't do it, someone else will. Which still doesn't answer,
yeah.
like, still doesn't solve the problem, though. But like, maybe no one else should. Maybe all people should just wait until things are done internally before it's actually reported upon. But it is very strange because I don't know in a like who exists in a world where they would not have found that information out, because as you're alluding to, he then had a press conference after the game where he was then asked about it. Like, hey, did you see this tweet by Wojciechowski? Like, you're fired, eh? And he was like, I don't know anything.
And look, I'm sure he knows. I mean, he's been a dead man walking for a while now. So it was clear, certainly once they were officially out of the playoffs, it was clear he was not going to be hanging around. So, and again, he can feel as if, he came in as a defensive minded coach with his success at the Pacers. he delivered an NBA championship to the Lakers with a defensive-minded team, and then they proceeded to build a new team totally unsuited to playing like a defense-first approach to basketball. So they didn't help him out from a coach perspective, and they really hamstrung him and limited his ability to do his best job. But it was clear. I mean, you have that massive of a failure, you're not going to hang around. Like that's impossible to imagine. So I'm sure it wasn't really breaking news for him, but you'd just be disappointed that someone else is officially being told that you're getting fired before they sit down and have the conversation with you.
Yeah, and exactly what you're alluding to. So they had finished, I think, first and third in, or sorry, third and first in defensive rating the first 2 years, and then dropped to the bottom 10th or 21st overall this year. So a definite drop.
Yeah, I mean, look, you get Russell Westbrook. That's always going to happen. Then you have, I mean, they're a very old team, and it's hard to play high intensity defensive basketball when you got a bunch of players coming towards the back end of their careers. So they didn't help him. He probably could have done a better job, but they definitely didn't help him to do a good job. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I wouldn't. I mean, I guess you would imagine that it's one of the most desirable jobs in the NBA, but I cannot. I mean, obviously, I would take the job now just because it would be bizarre. But if I were a successful, if I was a college coach hoping to break into the NBA, I wouldn't take it because I think you'd run the risk that you go to the Lakers, you fail in LeBron's final couple of seasons, and your shot at the NBA is gone because that's just what people will remember you as. And equally, like the only people I could see taking this job are kind of guys who've been hanging around NBA coaching positions and are currently unemployed and think, you know what, I'm kind of that guy who always gets mentioned as a second or third likely candidate for a job, and here we go. I never thought I'd be the Lakers coach, but this is my chance.
But I guess what you're saying is you are available.
I am officially throwing my hat into the
Okay.
ring for the Lakers coaching position.
Why not?
And I think, I think I can fix Tiger Woods' swing, and I can get LeBron James to have his best statistical season at the age of 38.
And have the Dodgers make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's easy. I get the Dodgers to the World Series.
Okay. Not bad.
Potentially win it. I'm not saying that they won't win it, but the guarantee is World Series appearance. Now, from a coaching failure to two highly respected coaches, we also had the other big match of this weekend was obviously the Manchester City Liverpool fixture, which was being described as a kind of title decider. In the end, I think because it finished in a 2-2 draw, it didn't decide anything. It's definitely advantage City because they stay 1 point ahead with 7 matches to go. They have the easier run in on paper, so you'd say it's advantage them. But I think a win for City would have put it out of reach, really, for Liverpool, because imagining City slipping up twice in their final 7 matches seems unlikely. A win for Liverpool, I don't think would have won them the title because, again, it kind of keeps you still within that 1 match reach. But it's advantage City, but as you were, which is interesting. It was a good match. It was exciting to watch. I found it interesting. After the match, Klopp described it like a boxing match. And I think he was kind of saying that he was describing it as in, one team scores and then the other comes back with a haymaker. I think that's a generous description of how Liverpool played. I think it was more like a boxing match where
it was like Rocky 1.
There was no TKO or knockout, but if you were going to the scorers, to the judges' scorecards, it would have been a comfortable victory for Manchester City. I think they were kind of 2 or 3 rounds, let's say, of where Liverpool got on top, but fundamentally it was City with Liverpool at arm's length, comfortably controlling the match, and they'll look back on it and think they should have put the match out of reach in that first half where they were so dominant for all but about 5 minutes of it. But over the course of the 90 minutes, I think they were the better team for probably 70, and they'll feel like it was a missed opportunity to wrap the title up, really.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, City looked like the better club, but I mean, part of that too is that how Liverpool wanted to play that though? To play that in that boxing parry kind of format where they were, if you know, they could, if they could hold them, and then if there was a leak and they did score, that they would kind of go for it and try and get it back, and then step back again and say like, okay, now let's just try and restabilize and hold them again here.
I think the second half is probably maybe how they felt like they could play, where they knew that they were going to have to ride out a storm in terms of it's unlikely that you're going to ever have more possession than City, even as a team like Liverpool. So you're always going to have to imagine you're kind of trying to hit them on the break. And Liverpool are built in some respect with the pace that they have up front and that ability to just string a great attack together. They're suited to that. But that first half will have concerned them in terms of the just how below par they were, and then also how dominant City were. I think they'll walk away from that. They're obviously about to play each other again in the FA Cup this weekend. There's a strong possibility they play each other in the Champions League final, and I think City will have come away from that thinking, "Oh, we're the better team. Like if we play as we can play, they can't live with us." So that first half, they were just lucky to still be in the match. I mean, they got a goal completely against the run of play. City probably should have scored 3 or 4 in the same period. I
And
mean,
also, I think the last 5 minutes or so, I really thought City was going to put that in at the end there. They had two or three good chances at the end there to just put that nail in the coffin.
yeah, I mean, look, in Sterling's goal, he's offside by a matter of inches
Yep.
in one of these, and look, I'm not disputing it, it's the correct decision, but it's one of these offside decisions where it's just him leaning slightly more than the defender in question.
Oh.
It's not like he's gained any advantage
Joel
through that
Embiid
body.
also did not like it, Eddie.
No, no. And very similar. I mean, they had, and so Liverpool kind of rode their luck there, and maybe that gives them a little bit of confidence because they come out of that thinking we almost played as badly as we could have, and we didn't lose. So you can reverse it going into the FA Cup or the Champions League, or for the run-in of them thinking, "Phew, we got away with that one." So maybe it's a sign that we're kind of either a team of destiny in the league, or at least we can be really below par and still live with them. But I don't know. To me, it's clear, and I know I've said this previously on the podcast, but City are the better team. Like when, if they're both A plus performances, their respective A plus performances, City are better. But Liverpool just have a doggedness to them where they are able to grind out results in a way that maybe City can't, even though both of them are so efficient. And I mean, it's going to be a very interesting run-in, but yeah, I also came away from that. It just seems like the City need a true goal scorer. I mean, Gabriel Jesus was actually very good in the match, and his finish for the second goal was excellent. But sometimes you see City, they're kind of building possession, and they're just kind of passing the ball around outside the box and getting the ball into wide positions. And then you look in, and it's, you know, Raheem Sterling waiting for a potential cross into the box, and you think, I mean, maybe he'll get on the end of this, but this seems unrealistic. And you feel like you're crying out for some kind of more traditional center forward to be there, to be on the end of some of what they're creating. Now, there's, uh, you know, they do lose something maybe in terms of how all of those players are interchangeable and can play and can kind of take a role in their build-up play. And Gabriel Jesus also contributed really effectively in terms of tracking back over the course of the match and contributing defensively. But you just kind of look at that and think, gosh, if Harry Kane had been up front for them in that match, I mean, he would watch that and think to himself, God, I could have 2 or 3 without doing too much.
Yeah, and Kevin De Bruyne could have 100 assists.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Harry Kane was at Augusta on Sunday.
Must be nice.
He flew out after Spurs' victory at the weekend and was briefly on Sky Sports talking about his golf and how excited he was to be at Augusta for the day.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed though that match, Liverpool City. I thought it was really exciting. The whole match, it was like a back and forth. There was a lot of chances, both ends, more for City, but it was action packed. And I have to say, I haven't seen that vicious of a handshake with Pep and Klopp since Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Predator. I mean, that was an epic handshake.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear they got immense respect for each other. I don't think they necessarily love each other. I think there's no love lost there.
Oh,
At the same time, it's not on the level. Coming into this, right, there was a whole discussion of, is this the greatest rivalry in the history of the Premier League? For me, it still isn't. And I don't think there's part of what it is lacking is that animosity that we saw. I think fundamentally the greatest rivalry we've seen is the Arsenal United rivalry of the late 90s, early 2000s. Because it lasted for slightly longer than this current rivalry has. So it has that going for it. But just they genuinely hated each other. The players hated each other. The managers hated each other. They kind of felt like there was a complete difference in their sort of approach to the game, their ethos. I think Guardiola and Klopp are not exactly the same in terms of their managerial style, obviously, but in the way they get their teams to play, there are a lot of similarities. So I don't know. I mean, I always come away from these. I really like Guardiola. I think he comes across as a nice person. I like it when he kind of loses his mind on the touchline too. I find it quite funny, just how animated he is when he gets very upset with decisions. I always feel like Klopp comes across as a little bit like of a dick who knows how to be the nice guy, but when he's really not happy about things, you see some aspect of his true colors. But I know I'm in the minority opinion, and minority with that opinion.
I think Pep is that person who like clearly was like holds their emotions on their shirt or on their sleeve or whatever. Like you can tell how he feels. It's you don't have to read his mind.
No, and look, I think it was a great advert for the Premier League. And again, I think the Premier League year in year out is the best league in the world in just the quality you see from top to bottom and the ability of bad teams to beat good teams in a way that you just don't see in some of the other European leagues. But it's rare that you can say the two best teams in European football are both in the Premier League. And I think it is clear that the two best teams in European football are in the Premier League. And to have them play such an entertaining match against each other is just a great advert for the kind of English game. But yeah, I mean, it was exciting. And like it's from a neutral's perspective, it sets it up nicely for kind of tasty FA Cup tie this weekend and a really interesting run-in. You like the idea that a draw could be catastrophic for either of these teams, which is a lot of pressure to deal with.
Yeah. And I guess keeping on the football front, Eddie, you mentioned that City, could benefit from a striker. How about Lewandowski? Because I saw today that there are reports that he might go to Barcelona. There are talks.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with all these Barcelona? It's kind of confusing to even understand how Barcelona are signing players. So I don't even, from that perspective, I don't.
What do you mean? There's no
it.
financial problem.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think these are. It's difficult to tell whether how much of this is rumors and how much of this is him maybe trying to get a better deal at Bayern. I can understand why he might want to leave because I don't think he gets a tremendous amount of respect, but he doesn't in the sense that people really put him into the greatest player in the world discussion. Kind of goes in as like, is he the best finisher or the best goal scorer or whatever? But he kind of gets left out. And in some respects, it's because he's not doing, people don't focus on the Bundesliga as much as they do some of the other leagues. So I can understand the temptation to either go to La Liga or the Premier League. I mean, let's not forget, he missed his chance to be in the Premier League. He could have signed for Blackburn several seasons ago. Had it not been for a volcano in Iceland, he would have been a Blackburn player. But I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. But in similar news, PSG have reportedly offered Kylian Mbappe a 150 million euro signing bonus to sign sign a new contract with them.
But Eddie,
So
once you take out taxes, it's really you're losing so
it's only
much of
75. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I mean, the amazing thing is, I think he'll turn it down. Now, I do get it. He's earning huge sums of money, so he can kind of afford to do it. But it is crazy to think that someone is offering him 150 million in a lump sum, and he may say, "No, you know what? I'll go play for Real Madrid."
Yeah, actually, when I was watching the Liverpool match, they were saying Mo Salah wanted 500,000 pounds a week or a month, yeah, a week, and that Liverpool were kind of at the 400,000, and both sides of the scenario to me are just kind of like I don't get either. I can play either side so easy. So like at one end, it's like 500,000 a week to 400,000. Are you really not going to sign? Because at that point, 400,000 is still such an amazing amount of money. But then on the other side, it's like if you're going to pay him 400,000 a week, you're not going to just bump up to 500,000. Like if you're going to commit that much money, then commit a little bit more of that much money. Like it's just so
Yeah,
outrageous of a concept on both sides to me.
it is, but I think it's also one of those interesting things. The weekly sum sounds so much larger than the annual sum. I mean, we've just spoken about Russell Westbrook, right, earning whatever it is, $45 million a year. That 400,000 pounds a week works out to 20.8 million a year. So, but putting it into a weekly figure just makes it sound so much bigger. I think from a psychological standpoint, that's kind of interesting, and it would be interesting to see if you were in Mo Salah's camp, if you reworked that. So instead of saying I want to go from 400,000 to 500,000, if you said I want to go from 20 million to what is that, 26 million, it doesn't sound quite so bad. Like I want to go from 21 to 26, basically. It doesn't sound, to me, it doesn't sound like such a huge leap. Whereas the 100,000 pounds a week sounds like a massive increase in your salary. But yeah, I think he'll end up signing just because I think of a lack of options. And I think he will appreciate how loved he is by the Liverpool fan base and the possibility of really going down as a club legend, which he just won't have elsewhere. And also the fact that he's at a club that is really being built to be suited to the way he plays. And you do run a risk that you go somewhere else. And that isn't the case. And we've seen that with a number of players who've, like Hazard or Gareth Bale or whoever it is, where you leave a club where you are kind of the center of attention, not only from a fan standpoint or a media standpoint, but also just in terms of how the team itself is playing. Don't know if you saw a little talking point. We rarely talk about Portuguese football, but I was watching some of the Porto match last night, and in I think it was the 93rd, 94th minute, a fan ran onto the pitch and attempted to hug one of their opposition players, and then weirdly, somewhat gently kick several of the opposition players. It was a very strange exchange. I mean, in the end, quite scary because obviously, whenever you have pitch invaders coming on and getting right up close and personal with players, you have no idea what they're actually going to do. So I don't think the players on the pitch were finding it amusing. But it's this. If I encourage people to go and search for the video because it's very weird. He does kick them, but it's not as if he's kicking them as hard as he possibly could do. It was very weird.
That's so strange. Was he trying to do like that little shin tap thing? The little warm
Kind
up?
of. It kind of looks like that. I mean, he's definitely not, and I mean, it was the home game for the opposition team, and he clearly was one of their supporters, so he was upset. Porto were winning the match, so he's obviously upset, probably with the home team's performance. But it was very bizarre. Also, speaking of football endorsement deals, I don't know if you saw one of your favorite players signed a pretty big deal with a brand. I think it was last week. Jack Grealish signed a 7-figure deal with Gucci.
I saw that. Good for him.
Yeah.
Face of Gucci. I love it. The hair of Gucci for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I find it difficult. I feel like he should try and become the face of Manchester City first. Like, I always kind of striking that balance as to when you seek that additional attention outside of football versus concentrating on your career. I'm not going to begrudge him for.
I don't think you can pass up the opportunity when it presents itself, because what if he gets hurt tomorrow?
I mean, he's making tons of money and he'll be insured. So,
yeah, but still, like you never know what's going to happen.
And also, look, I think he could still be the face of Gucci even if his career ended tomorrow. I think it would still be former England and Manchester City player, now the face of Gucci.
I know what you mean. I mean, he did terribly miss a pass in the 88th minute. I think he had a wide open Kevin De Bruyne on the left side.
I mean, it's just interesting, right? Because if he'd signed this deal coming out of the Euros, you would have said, oh, much deserved. Like, he's put in a good Euros. He's had great seasons with Aston Villa. Good for him. But because he's struggled to sort of really make an impact since joining Manchester City, not that he's been bad, but he certainly hasn't necessarily lived up to the billing, then it just doesn't sit quite right. But I don't think it's awful. I wouldn't knock him for it, but it's just one of those things where you think, maybe wait to sign that until, if I were him, maybe wait till City win the league or win something, and then you get to slip it in under the radar a little bit afterwards of, oh, and I also am now the face of Gucci. But good for him still.
So I've got two little food items, kind of like childhood food items. The first one is, we've talked previously about Dunkaroos and how good they used to be, and other foods you see it as a child. So someone posted an article about, it might have been TikTok, I forget what it was, that they went back and tried the foods that they loved as a kid now as an adult, and seeing whether they held up. And Dunkaroos got a perfect score. And it said that it was like the perfect frosting and the perfect ratio of cookie to frosting in the packaging, and it was just exactly how you remembered it as a child.
I mean, I guess that's the challenge, right? Is what you want from it is to taste it and it to be really good, or do you want it to be, and not that these two things are necessarily mutually exclusive, or do you want to taste it and think, this is exactly what I remember?
Yeah,
because those are actually two different things, right? Yes. And like,
but having it taste like you remember it can also evoke positive emotion, because you're bringing back those memories of childhood when you were probably much happier than you are as an adult.
Oh, that's depressing, but sure. I mean, yes, they were simpler times.
Yes.
I never once was worrying about anything serious while eating a Dunkaroo, so I guess that's true.
The other one that got rated pretty high were Gushers. Were you a fan of Gushers growing up?
No, not my style of
I love
snack.
Gushers. And then they did the Lunchables. The pizza one didn't taste that great, but they still ate the entire thing, versus the sandwich one. They said the lunch meats were pretty slimy, which I remember them being slimy when I was young, and kind of saying this is a terrible lunch meat. I'm not eating this for the lunch meat.
Yeah, I never really had the Lunchable pizza.
I loved the Lunchable pizza.
The Lunchable sandwich I had, I mean, not regularly, but definitely somewhat consistently. And I have fond memories of the Lunchable sandwich. And if I try and picture it, I feel like I would still, not that I would be going out and buying it regularly, but I feel like I would still enjoy it today. Like if I was over at someone's house and we were wanting snacks and they got out some Lunchable sandwiches, I would happily eat one.
I love the concept of that. It's like, hey, you guys want to come over? We're gonna make some appetizers, set out some nice food. And they just set out 15 boxes of little Lunchables, and you gotta individually open them.
I wouldn't complain. And then afterwards, we could make we could play some GoldenEye.
Oh, that would be awesome. The other thing that popped up was, did you ever eat Lucky Charms as a child?
I mean, yes, but not really. I will say I was in a family where the more sugary cereals were not something we really had consistently. Like Frosted Flakes were as sugary as things kind of got on a regular basis. So I definitely had them, but they were never regularly stocked in our house.
So you're saying you were a pretty salty and sour family?
from a from a cereal perspective, yeah.
So I guess you are what you eat, right?
Yes, sure.
So according to the website iwaspoisoned.com, which they collect reports from consumers about whether they feel as if they were poisoned, there's been 100 reports that people have experienced gastrointestinal issues ranging from nausea and diarrhea to vomiting after eating specifically Lucky Charms.
I mean, I don't know how to read into that, because I feel like you could get those reports about pretty much any product. Like someone is going to have an upset stomach and attribute it to something.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing, but the issue is that there aren't any other cereals that people are putting this in for. Like, it is specifically for the Lucky Charms. But it is funny because you read some of them, and one was like, my child ate Lucky Charms every day for 3 months straight for breakfast. And then he stopped eating it, and a week later he felt really good. It's like, yeah, is that your child being poisoned? Or is that not eating 100 grams of sugar at your first meal of the day?
Yeah, and I mean, it's like the Super Size Me argument, right? The documentary, which I'm not saying that eating McDonald's for every meal over the course of a month is ever going to lead to great results. But he went into it and was like, not only am I going to eat McDonald's every day for every meal, but I'm going to eat McDonald's like an asshole for every meal. Like, it wasn't eating it like a somewhat normal, sensible human being might approach, or even as if McDonald's might kind of want you to do. It was like, literally, why not I have 3 Big Macs? Like, why don't I do that for lunch? It's just like, I think even McDonald's would kind of tell you, probably shouldn't do that. We'll sell them to you, but you probably shouldn't. But I think that's the thing is, again, Lucky Charms, probably, definitely not part of a stable nutritional diet particularly for a young child. But you can't be like, well, they're poisoned because I fed them to my kid for every meal for 7 years, and then he was not great.
Fed them to my child for every meal with half milk, half bleach, and he feels terrible.
But it was definitely the Lucky Charms.
But apparently the feds are investigating. There's been so many reports. So
Great.
Stay tuned for further information.
Tackling the big topics.
What a great long play that would be for General Mills. I don't know what the long play is, but to slowly...
Just poisoning people?
Yeah, but what are they getting out of it? I don't know yet. That's to TBD. But the slow poisoning of select American youth via the Lucky Charms, that's a long play there.
Yeah, I'm agree with you. I don't know what the real benefit is. I don't know what the benefit of poisoning your customer base is. But yeah, maybe it's a large part of a larger conspiracy theory. Speaking of conspiracy theories, for whatever reason, we've spoken about my YouTube rabbit holes that I go down occasionally. I have been on just a Titanic related YouTube rabbit hole now for several days. Don't know why. I'm not particularly interested in the Titanic overall.
Oh, wait. It is actually, I thought you meant like you have been on a very large.
No.
Yeah, no.
Specific.
Like, the topic ship, is the ship Titanic.
The ship, okay. The Titanic, not the movie, the ship, and everything from, how it, sort of what happened, how it transpired, theories about sort of elements that contributed to the sinking, and lots of bits and pieces. Some of the content, it's very repetitive, I will say. Like, if you watch one Titanic documentary, you kind of watch them all, but they will each try and bring their own thing. The one piece of information that I was completely unaware of, maybe it gets mentioned in the movie. I have only seen the movie once back when it came out. It has the 4 funnels on the Titanic. One of them was not operational. One of them was just for show. It was just a hollow funnel that was there because the White Star Line knew that people associated 4 funnels with speed. So they just added a fake 4th funnel onto the ship.
But I want to say it was fake, but did it also put smoke out?
No.
Are you sure? Because I think in pictures, all of them look like they have smoke coming out.
I think some of the pictures are not of the. Oftentimes, when you see pictures of the Titanic, which are reported to be the Titanic, it's not actually the Titanic. It's one of the sister ships. So I think this is one of the other things. But no, it didn't get. It was hollow and it had a ladder running up it that could be used as a kind of something of a kind of a point for observation. But no, it's just a hollow funnel.
That's quite interesting.
I was completely it's not groundbreaking in any way, but it was completely unaware of this fact, and it's pretty much the only thing I took away from all these documentaries I watched.
Did this stem because of yesterday, April 10th, was the 110th anniversary of the boarding of the Titanic?
No, I think I started this rabbit hole probably on Friday, and I probably completed the rabbit hole today. I think I have exhausted any interest in the Titanic at this point. Now, maybe that's why I originally was suggested a video, because it's kind of around the anniversary. So that might be why it somehow appeared on my suggested viewing on YouTube, which is, I wasn't searching for anything Titanic related, but no, that isn't what inspired me. I did not seek this content out. It was just on the right-hand side. I saw it and went, well, why don't I watch this one? And 9 hours later, I think I've consumed almost all of the content on the internet related to the Titanic.
Your esteemed friend Bill Simmons, he does the Rewatchables podcast, and I recently listened to the episode they did on the Titanic, and it was actually a pretty good episode because they go into a 15-minute rant about how Rose might have been the worst person on the Titanic and how she was a terrible person, and they go through like all the ways upon which she was like a pretty shitty person.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those things that people think is a unique take that kind of everyone's, because there's obviously been the big debate about how there was definitely space for both of them on the.
But it goes a lot past that. That's what I enjoy.
No.
They go into like a lot of different details about like all the ways in which she's actually a pretty shitty person.
Yeah, but no, it's not a movie I've ever rewatched, and nor do I have any desire to do so. Even during all of this Titanic rabbit hole, never thought to myself, you know what I should do? I should watch that blockbuster Hollywood movie.
Oh, I think you're missing out. It's a great movie. Special effects still hold up.
Do they?
Yeah, I watched it like 8 months ago.
I've seen clips where when it's the shot of the boat kind of moving by and that's all animated, right? It looks very cartoonish to me, and maybe that's where you're getting the idea that there was smoke coming out of all four.
Maybe I'm thinking of the movie. I thought you were going to tell me that the necklace was real. The Hope was it the Hope Diamond? Is that what it is? No, it's not the Hope Diamond.
No,
is it?
The Hope Diamond is real.
The Hope Diamond is real. Yeah,
so I'll tell you that.
But what do they call it in the movie?
I can't remember. As I said, I've not seen that movie since 1997, so I have no idea. I can kind of picture it as blue or whatever it is, but I have no idea what it's called.
The Heart of the Ocean. Man, there's gonna be a lot of people yelling at us for that one.
I don't know if that's true.
Would Sam have known that if he were still on this podcast?
He's pretty good at random trivia. I would say no. I'll ask him off podcast.
Well, we'll get an answer in 6 months then.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think he would have known that. But maybe. He does always have bizarre tidbits, when it comes to random knowledge. So it's possible, but it would surprise me.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll wrap it up.
So,